Welcome, Bryte Church, to another devotional. Let's read out of the book of Judges in the Old Testament. Judges chapter 2, I'm going to read verse 11 till the end. Judges chapter 2, verse 11 till the end. Then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. And they followed other gods from among the gods of the people who were all around them, and they bowed down to them, and they provoked the Lord to anger. They forsook the Lord and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, so he delivered them into the hands of the plunderers who despoiled them, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, so that they could no longer stand before their enemies. Wherever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for calamity. The hand of the Lord was against them for calamity, as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn to them, and they were greatly distressed. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges who delivered them out of the hand of those who plundered them. Yet they would not listen to their judges, but they played the harlot with other gods, and bowed down to them. They turned quickly from the way in which their fathers walked, in obeying the commandments of the Lord. They did not do so. And when the Lord raised up judges for them, the Lord was with the judge and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of those who oppressed them and harassed them. And it came to pass, when the judge was dead, that they reverted and behaved more corruptly than their fathers, by following other gods to serve them and bow down to them. They did not cease from their own doings, nor their own stubborn way. Then the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he said, Because this nation has transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and has not heeded my voice, I also will no longer drive out before them any of the nations which Joshua left when he died, so that through them I may test Israel, whether they will keep the ways of the Lord, to walk in them as their fathers kept them, or not. Therefore the Lord left those nations without driving them out immediately, nor did he deliver them into the hand of Joshua. This is a very interesting thing. We read that the nation of Israel is supposed to be an example for all of the nations in how God blessed them. If you read other passages in Exodus and Deuteronomy, God said, I will bless you. There will be no barren among you. You will have a plenty to eat. I will bless the land. All of the enemies are going to be defeated. Blessing after blessing. And yet we see here that they are an example of discipline, an example when they are disobedient, time and time again. So the question obviously arises, what gives? Why? And there's a lot of reasons for this, but I want to point out one from this context right here, because we read verses 11 till the end, but one of the reasons why this happened seems to be from a disconnect between the previous generation and this generation. There's something that happened. It's not obvious what happened, but there are some possibilities. If you read verse 10 of the same chapter, it says, When all that generation that came out of Egypt, and then the next generation after that, right? So there was a generation that came out of Egypt. All of them died in the wilderness, and then there's another generation that came into the promised land, and then here is the next generation. When all the generations had been gathered to their fathers, meaning they passed away, another generation arose after them who did not know the Lord nor the work which he had done for Israel. How can this happen? How can it be that God did so much for Israel, getting them out of Egypt, out of slavery, making sure that their clothes don't wear away, their sandals don't get worn, having enough food to eat through the wilderness, getting them to the promised land, all of the miracles that God had done were not passed on to the next generation. Now, it could be the case, there's two options. One of the options would be that the parents, the first generation, did not act like this was important, did not value this. They did not prioritize the covenant and did not value that covenant in front of their children, and therefore the children didn't think much of it. and said, okay, well, that's what my parents did, but I'm going to do something else. And that's the other flip side. The other thing that could have happened was that the parents did value it, did show that it's important and prioritize it in their family and in their lifestyle, that they should be obedient to God. But that next generation just said, you know what, that's your thing. I'm going to do my own thing and see how my life's agenda for myself is going to work out. And so that might be the reason. It's not clear about what exactly happened between that generation and the next, but there was some disconnect. So I want to ask you and encourage you, what things has God done in your life? There are plenty of things that God has done in your life, both miraculous and what you think is not miraculous, or what you count as not miraculous, that's plain. God has done a lot of things. And so the question is, who have you shared this with? Have you shared this with your kids? I remember sharing a story with my son about how I and a group of friends got lost in the forest. And literally, if it wasn't for God's grace, I might not be doing this devotional today. But because of God's miraculous grace, we found our way out. We technically were found, and we came home safe and sound. And now he tells me, Dad, tell me that again. Tell me that story again. And so that story is something that I'm going to keep in me and sharing with other people, the details of all of that, so that God can be glorified. And I will not forget how God was the center of our prayer at that moment when we really needed a rescue. So who are you sharing those situations with? Are you sharing them with your friends? Let's create an atmosphere where those things that God has done or is doing in our life, where we share those and glorify God, so that from one generation to the next, we see that people are valuing their relationship with God and what God is doing. I encourage you, think about what God has done and share that, own it, and share that with the next generation or with your friends. And if you don't know what has happened in your parents' life and they're not sharing it, go to your parents, go to your grandparents and ask them, share something that God did in your life. Let's have that connection so that from one generation to the next, we can experience the blessings and the amazing, amazing grace of God. Be blessed.